2026 meeting of the AMATS Technical Advisory Committee to order. It's 1 p.m. Aaron, would you please do the roll call and public involvement announcement?
Of course. Member Alini?
Present.
Member Dawad?
Present.
Thank you. Member Amatam?
Present.
Thank you. Member Lindemood?
Present.
Member Boland?
Here.
Member White?
Here.
Member Coy?
Here.
Member Keegan? Member Kohlhaas?
Here.
Member Babb?
Present.
And Member Rudolph, I believe, is excused. So you have quorum. So the public involvement announcement. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the AMATS Technical Advisory Committee meeting. Public comments are welcomed and encouraged with 3 minutes given to each speaker. After the committee discusses each item, members of the public will be invited to comment. Housekeeping items. For virtual attendees, please keep your cameras off unless speaking. For those attending by phone, press *6 to mute or unmute yourself. And as a reminder, AMATS committee meetings are audio recorded and posted on the AMATS YouTube page. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Do we have a motion for approving the agenda?
Approve.
Second.
Moved by Member Babb, seconded by Member Lindemood. Are there any changes that are needed to the agenda?
Yes, Chair. We do have one item that came in after the agenda was posted. It was tip admin mod number 9. I did provide it to you all before the meeting. You also have a physical copy before you, and the files are posted on our agenda page for the members of the public if they would like to look at it. So the request would be to add this item to the agenda as 5D. So it'll be after the subcommittee autonomy. Thank you.
Okay, is a member of the committee willing to make a motion to add the AMATS funding program tip admin mod number 9 as item 5D?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, moved by Member White, second by Member Keegan. Are there any opposed to that amendment? Okay, hearing none, that is now incorporated into the main motion of approving the agenda. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
No, sir. I have.
Okay. Are there any objections to approving the agenda as amended? Okay, hearing none, the agenda is approved as amended. Next item is item 4, approval of the previous meeting minutes. Do we have a motion for approving the July 2nd, 2026 minutes?
I move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Member Kohlhaas, seconded by Member Boland. Are there any discussion or changes to the minutes?
No discussion, but I'll be abstaining from the vote because I didn't get a chance to read them, which I regret because they're always very well written. I won't be voting.
Okay. Other discussion or comments? Okay. Can I do any objections and then just count Member Babb as abstained? Is that appropriate? Okay. Are there any objections to approving the minutes? Okay, hearing none, the July 2nd, 2026 minutes are approved, recognizing that Member Babb abstained. Move on to item 5A, 2052 Transportation Plan, or MTP, project update. Is this for?
This will be me. I'll take it, and then Rhiannon can help fill in where I mess up. So before you is an item that was provided by the Transportation, a request to update a project in the 2052 MTP, the 5th 6th Avenue Complete Street project. I believe it's on line 127 of the Complete Streets list for anybody who is interested in looking at it. I apologize, I don't have it in front of you, but it is basically doing some work on 5th and 6th Avenue from L to Reeve is what it says in the document, but it was updated to be L to Airport Heights. And it is doing a lane reduction and some active transportation improvements along the corridor. The request that came from DOT is to provide a cost estimate, an updated cost estimate for a portion of the project, as well as update the project description. So I'll kind of go through that real quick for you all. So in the project description, what will be added is this project will include drainage work to recognize the drainage work that will be done. And then the project will be split into 2 projects with the following termini. L Street to Gamble, and then Gamble Street to Airport Heights intersection. Additionally, we will update the project costs to the following. The L Street to Gamble portion is $262.5 million based on the cost estimate provided to us by DOT, which is attached to the agenda for you for your information. And then the Gamble Street to Airport Heights, it's $55 million on the memo. However, there's an error. That was actually updated to be $30.5 million. We did that for fiscal constraint. So the correction will be made on the memo for the policy committee meeting. So we've already done that behind the scenes to make it to the 30.5. So that was just an error on me. That's what you get when you don't talk to the project manager and get confirmation on things. So I apologize for that. So as provided by DOT, the project cost for the L Street to Gamble will be covered by additional funding above and beyond the historical funding provided by DOT within the AMATS area. Just for your information, the current project in the MTP that goes from L Street to Airport Heights is $30.5 million for the entire thing. So we didn't have an updated cost estimate for the Gamble Street to Airport Heights intersection. So we just took that 30 million and applied it to that section, and then took the 262.5 and applied it to the L to Gamble based on. So staff recommendation is for the technical advisory committee to review this information and provide a recommendation to the policy committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
Is there a contact at DOT? We received a request from DOT, but is there a division or a person?
At this point, I don't think we have a project manager assigned to this project. I guess you could come through me if there's questions there. I think this gets into the MTP. I think the next step would get it into the TIP. Probably assign somebody at that point in time. So.
Okay, other questions or comments from the committee?
I just have a question about the timeline. I'm not sure who to direct this to actually, if it would be to staff or DOT, but the work that DOT is showing here in the project schedule, it looks like it's starting as early as late 2026, and I'm just curious how that aligns with this process and getting the funding into the TIP. That's going to work.
Yeah, so the timeline that's included on the attachment there, it says early 2026 or late 2026, early 27. We're at the end of the fiscal year 26, so it wouldn't be 26 funding, and we wouldn't be able to get this into the TIP until the first TIP amendment after the MTP is completed. So we're probably into calendar year 27 likely before we're starting any design here, right? Probably the earliest.
Yeah, from the AMAT side, just process wise, the soonest we'll be able to get this into the TIP based on MTP approval is April, if all stars align, of 27. And that's after all public comment and policy committee approvals.
So that's when the TIP can be through all the public comment, like be ready.
And that typically is once it's in the TIP and in the final version, then they can obligate the funds for it. For the federal side of things, that's just federal that we're talking.
Any other questions or comments from the committee?
I have a couple
Okay.
questions and then maybe comments after that.
Go ahead.
So I guess first a comment, in looking at the reconstruction project scope, I was very interested to see how detailed it was. Is that typically how DOT is scoping kind of a project?
So this document here wasn't created by DOT, I don't believe, or it didn't come out of normal. I'm not sure where this came from. So I think when it comes to the project scope, as we kick off project initiation efforts, we'll refine that to probably more of the typical scope that you would see for a DOT project. It's a little bit more open-ended, a little bit more we'll consider type things. A lot of that final decision making or some of the things along those lines really needs to be identified during the NEPA process when we go through alternative analysis.
I mean, it's something I haven't seen before, so that's why it flagged my attention. I got me interested and I read it thoroughly and I was like, wow, this is very detailed. I've not seen this before, this level of detail, which I appreciated. I thought somebody did a good job in laying out as many of the facts as far as scoping goes. One thing that I'm also interested in, because I've only worked on rehabilitation projects that we've been coordinating between MOA and DOT. So the reconstruction realm, I'm not familiar with. This scoping memo talks about all utilities being upgraded or replaced. Is that kind of a typical eligible scope, water, sewer? You know, I mean, I've just never really dug into those types of details or do not have familiarity of that type of a reconstruction.
Yeah, typically we'd move through a project and identify what utilities are impacted by the project and need to be adjusted as a result of the project. So I think some refinement, I think, as we've preliminary design, environmental, and then into final design.
Okay.
In terms of what utilities are either adjusted or relocated.
Okay, and that's more of the norm that I'm accustomed to on a PM&E project, rather than having that expectation that all utilities are going to be renewed, which would be great, but that's rather expensive and a lot of scope. The one thing that I did appreciate that it also said was that it noted that there might be side streets along that corridor that will also have to be folded into the scope. And from PM&E's experience working in downtown, when we have been working on originally scoped as lighting and signalization projects, which are more just complete street projects. We have also had to incorporate some of the side streets to capture some of the utilities and the load centers and just the tie-in points. So I thought that was a good point made. And then I did look at the mapping of where the water and sewer and storm drain exists now in that long corridor. And a lot of the sewer main is in the alleys on the north and south of 5th and 6th. So just for awareness, as the project develops, I'm reaching out to AWW if there are opportunities to bring them back into the roadway versus the alleys. That interesting, but again, very expensive. I guess my other comment to make is just the timeline itself. It seems like a massive project as I looked at it, and knowing what do we have underway so far between MOA and DOT agency-led projects. I've been kind of following projects for the past 6 years, and we're working towards delivery of many of these projects, but we're not there yet. So just thinking about, gosh, I think this is a very valuable project, but to be able to have something substantially complete in 2032, I'm just questioning the realistic timeline that's presented. And whether it has to do with agencies' resources, there's also this conversation that's happening about where are all the engineers, not only in agencies, but in our industry, and what is their capacity as well. So I think sounds like a great project, but just some basic comments that I'm making. Expect an answer, just some things to share.
Okay, thanks, Member Kohlhaas. Are there other questions or comments from the committee?
I know this says,
Go ahead, Member Beth.
sorry, I know this says draft on it, but I think I just want to point out that there's two different totals here. You have the 262 million total at the bottom of the cost estimate, and then in the following paragraph, it talks about. So I'm just pointing that out. I'm assuming it's just a typo or a remnant from another draft. And then I just wanted to echo some of Melinda's comments a little bit of just wondering about staffing resources at DOTs. I know that projects have been impacted a little bit by the lack of staff resources recently. So I'm hoping that this funding comes along with some additional resources for staff or more staff, hopefully, so that you can actually accomplish this timeline, because it would be wonderful to see projects completed on that timeline, but it does seem ambitious.
I think in response to that, I think there are the two totals in here. I would say that either total is likely conservative for the work that we're talking about doing here on 5th and 6th. So excited to get a project kicked off to dig into the details on what the cost is going to look like. And then on the resourcing front, I think we're heading in a good direction at DOT in terms of filling a lot of vacancies. We've got longevity in positions right now. And so I think we're trending in the right direction. We got a good team over there. I also wouldn't turn down additional positions too. So anymore, I'll gladly accept more staff to help out with these efforts.
So this scope that we're looking at, the scope and cost estimate, it does feel very much like a draft. I mean, it's a little bit outside of the normal process. So would you say it's more like just an idea of what the scope could be for the project rather than the actual scope? Because I was struggling with the same thing that Linda was mentioned. It just doesn't look like what we usually see from DOT regarding scopes.
Yeah, I think this is more of a planning level, where it's project initiation. We're going to do a scope schedule estimate. We're going to engage all the sections within reconstruction group. So we'll look at our utilities folks, right, environmental, and get some more detailed timelines on things. They'll look at the corridor, look at the scope of the project, and that closer look will provide some more clarity on some of the details that we got in here.
Okay, go ahead.
I forgot to mention, sorry, there's a lot to keep track of with this. So what's before you today is just updating the termini and the cost and a little bit of the scope. It's not actually going to be changing anything for the modeling. So we're not going to have to pause the 2050 MTP update that we're doing right now and go back and remodel things or kind of pause our modeling. So with what is before you today, if it is approved, it still allows us to continue moving forward, and crossing our fingers, the draft will be to you guys in September for release for public comments.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. So should the 262.5 million be the number that we assume is, I guess that's what you have in your memo, right? So
Yeah, that's the direction that we got from DOT, is use the 262.5, and an updated cost estimate will be provided to us. I will note, as of right now, it has not been provided to me for that updated cost estimate. So once we get that, hopefully we can get it for the policy committee.
other questions or comments from the committee?
I had a question for a member of the public attending who is related to this project. If that's okay.
Usually I think we've allowed that.
Okay. Kent, would you like to weigh in on this at all? It looked like you might have something to say.
Thank you, Member Bev. I did have a few comments. Appreciate the questions and the discussion. I would say that from the public works perspective, and I think from the administration perspective, we're very excited about the collaboration with DOT and DOT's amendment to bring this project forward in this revised scope and splitting up the project into two discrete sections. I think with respect to the cost estimate, just to clarify, we did have some very preliminary discussions and recognize that there was a discrepancy there. And as Mr. Young and Nealon pointed out, the 262 is the more current number. Although I think that as the project progresses, that number will be refined even further. I think it's worth noting that on the item overview that was provided as item supplementary to item 5A, the bottom paragraph notes that the project right now is expected to be funded by DOT funding above and beyond the historical funding that's generally comes to the AMEDS area. So, but they will be working on that cost estimate. In those early discussions, the information under item 1, the quote will add drainage work was added to ensure that as the project moves forward, that it's a fully comprehensive, at least there's the ability to fully reconstruct that with respect to everything. And I think folks are aware that we are engaged in current discussions with DOT to assume management control of 5th and 6th. And of course, it's in the municipality's interest to have this work completed or well underway when that happens, much like we do on other roads that we accept management responsibility for. We want to make sure that we accept responsibility for a fully current standard facility. With respect to staffing, I think Mr. Boland spoke to it well. We're also have been talking with DOT about the ability for the municipality to take on more and more management of federally funded projects. This one would probably be, you know, at the very outskirts of our ability to take on at this time, given our skill set and staffing. But we are talking about the municipality taking more active roles in smaller scope projects, which will free up capacity for DOT to take on projects like this. So recognize it's an aggressive timeline. I guess I'd close by saying I'm certainly glad to answer any questions that I might be able to answer, but we're very excited about this collaboration, and this is a high priority project for downtown.
I do have a question for,
Go ahead.
so just for the sake of the public, Member Roland mentioned that he wasn't sure where this came from out of DOT. This might be considered a result of the conversations that we've been having, that UV's been having with DOT about downtown taking ownership.
I would say we were provided a copy, but the document as we see it came to us from DOT. I don't think it came from, apparently didn't come from the Central Region staff, but it came from DOT to us.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments from the committee?
I have another
Go ahead.
comment. Let's see, I reached out to AMATS just before the meeting. Sorry for the short heads up, but just looking back at the draft 2052 MTP project list and reconciling a couple of projects that are already identified for Fifth Avenue. They are currently identified as line items 23 and 24, and they're Fifth Avenue signals and lighting upgrades. The first one is L to H. And let's see, the other one is H to Cordova Street. So of course, we don't want to have duplicate projects in there. And they're already showing, let's see, 11 million and 15.5 million identified. So the question is, could we remove those and roll in those costs for the constrained amount back into the other project? Or I don't know, or at least remove them.
Yeah, we can, and correct me if I'm wrong, we can remove them, but the problem is those are AMATS funded. And the 5th, 6th project we're talking about is DOT. So if you remove them, it will free up money for AMATS projects, but not for the 5th, 6th project that DOT is bringing forward.
No.
So kind of on that line, do we know if it's better to leave those other projects in as is for now, or is this adding this other one should those come out?
I guess in terms of the fiscal constraint, we're pretty well balanced on the AMAT side is my understanding on this. So I think that might throw a wrench in what we have prepared. I think, you know, when it comes to the cost estimates, this thing of this project, it's more of a, you know, DOT bringing more money into the Anchorage area. So I think we can refine that amount further. So I'd say we leave those projects for right now and clean them up as we know more about what this entails and they're still needed in any way, shape, or form.
And I have a correction. I skipped a line. It's actually 10 million and 11 million.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, let's give an opportunity for any members of the public to comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment? If you're online, please raise your hand. If you're in the room, you can also raise your hand. I don't see any in the room.
Going online.
No hands coming up online. Okay, what is the will of the committee? The action requested at the top of the briefing from staff was to make a recommendation. The background explanation suggests that DOT is asking to update the existing Fifth Sixth project in the 2052 MTP big streets list to add information and the project description, split the project into 2 segments and increase the cost. Those are some options.
Can I be efficient and say so moved? You laid it out pretty well there, Brett. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, so to update, so what I listed last, to update the existing, I guess that is what I said, yep. So moved by member Boland, do we have a second? Seconded by member Leamy to update the Fifth Sixth project in the 2052 MTP complete streets list. Add additional information in the project description and split the project into segments. Increase the cost. Does that give enough information to staff to be able to do? Any more specificity to that?
We just need to know when the funding needs to be applied, the additional funding that we're receiving beyond the historical amount. We just need to know what years to apply it within our revenue table.
Yeah, because the schedule is a little hard for us to determine, you know, what years should get a hit of funding. Like with the Safer Seward, for example, we got from DOT the exact years they were expecting to obligate the funds for it. We don't typically receive that for projects, so that's above and beyond the normal. So we as staff didn't know how to apply it. Like, is it 27 is 1 year and then 2032 is the rest? So if we can just get from you all either now or before the policy committee meeting, what that is, we can make that good on our end.
Yeah, maybe we get that at the after the meeting. If that works out okay.
Okay, other discussion or amendments to the motion? Okay, are there any objections to approving the motion? Hearing no objections, that motion is approved. So moving on to the next item, item 5B. The letter of support for the U.S. Bicycle Route alignment. And it looks like this might be Emily.
It will be, yes, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Emily Weiser, the non-motorized coordinator with AMATS. So this item before us today is maybe something we don't talk about a lot in Alaska or haven't in the past, but it is a national system. It's managed by AASHTO, and it's managed by the same office that does the numbered U.S. highway routes or system. So they're determining, you know, what the number is, making sure that's not duplicated, and also where the route goes through each state. The DOT, the Alaska DOT Bike and Ped coordinator noticed that the route that's currently recommended for people, oh, and I should say, the way this route is used is not to design anything or allocate funding, but it is provided to the public as a recommendation. They want to bike through the area. This is the suggested route. So the route that's currently suggested on the official website through the Anchorage Bowl comes straight up the Seward Highway and onto the Glen Highway, which is not something I would recommend to anybody and probably not something any of us would recommend to anyone for biking through the Anchorage Bowl. And then also through Eagle River and Chudiak, it stays on the highway shoulder. It doesn't use the paths or the old Glen or anything else that's available. So we think it's past time to update that and provide better guidance on suitable routes. There are some guidelines for the system about the type of route that you should be looking for. They do recommend going around population centers instead of through them, using very low volume, very low car traffic roads, or dedicated bicycle facilities like paths and trails. So Julie sat down and drafted a route, then met with myself and Donovan Kemp with Muni Traffic, the bicycle and pedestrian coordinator there, to refine the route, and we came up with something that we were all very much in agreement with. And I guess, sorry, I should be clicking around. You on the hyperlink for okay, so on the screen now, or you guys on your have the links, is the proposed route that we're looking at. On this map, it does continue through the Matsu outside the AMATS area. That's not up for discussion today. It's just part of the general discussion about parts of the route that needed to be changed. But you can see the suggested route, new route would go from the Seward Highway, which coming into town is the only option, but then routing onto the old Seward, Rabbit Creek area. That's a nicer alternative to the highway shoulder. And then going through the Ocean View area on some really low traffic roads with a couple of connecting pathways between neighborhoods. Going along the Moose Loop route on 88th and Diamond and Sand Lake up to Raspberry along the Coastal Trail. Coastal Trail connects over to the Ship Creek Trail, and then it takes you onto the Glen Highway path. That takes you, whoops. All right, working with my delay here. That takes you up to Eagle River on the Glen Highway path. We did have an Eagle River resident who flagged for us something that we had intended to change on this route, but did not. So I am working with Julius to update this proposed route. So here on the part that I'm zooming in on, kind of through the heart of Eagle River, we show the route going up the Old Glen through the business district, but that's actually not a very efficient place to bike, and it doesn't follow their guidelines. There's a bunch of driveways and conflicts, and the better route, there is a path along the highway here, which you can just see as the green line on the map. Kind of following that curve of the highway, and then it connects back up with the red line, which is the proposed route at that next interchange. So I anticipate we'll be making that change, and that could be reflected in this letter of support if you would like to make that amendment, or just we'll think about how to word the motion. But that was a mutually agreed upon part of the route that just didn't make it onto this map. And then from there, it does go up the Old Glen through the sort of wider parts of Chugiak. The path there it's still separated, and there's a lot fewer driveways. And while there is a highway path for part of that, our thought was to use the Old Glen because it's much quieter than staying right along the highway. And it's still very suitable and low stress for biking. And then once you get past Mirror Lake, there's no option but to go on the highway shoulder. So we are showing that. And after you get past Eklutna, this is getting out of the AMATS area, but just for your information, it does route onto the Old Glen, and instead of going on the highway across the bridge, across the Connect. So that is the overview of the proposed route. There are options in this system to say, okay, you've taken us around town, but what if we want to get into town and resupply, or stay somewhere, or see some sites in the town. The system does have the option to add a spur route to say, if you want to come into town, kind of here's one or more good options. I don't know exactly the mechanism of how that's implemented. I think we were going to start with the main route and get that through, and then there is an opportunity to update this twice a year, every year with AASHTO, so we're certainly not locking anything in. But yeah, if you think there's value in those spurs, we'll be looking into that either way, but you can let us know if you that about covers it. So we're recommending that if you support it, that you recommend the policy committee pass the letter of support. It's a pretty brief letter, just saying we support the proposed route, and then we will be attaching to the letter the proposed route, and that can include the change in Eagle River that I mentioned if you're supportive of that. But the route will be attached to the letter just to make it really clear this is the route we're supporting. Interactive map is publicly available, so that link will be available for 12 days. You know exactly through. Any questions on any of that?
Okay. Thanks, Emily. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
Why did you choose the coastal and ship over the Campbell?
That was mostly from the recommendation to go around town. Campbell Creek does go through town. It also involves a little bit more navigating as you're connecting Campbell up to Ship Creek Trail. We certainly talked about that. comments to that, I'm more than happy to take that feedback. But it felt also their recommendation for scenic value. I do really like the Campbell Creek Trail and Chester Creek Trail, but coastal seems to be a little bit more on people's bucket lists.
Did you use pedestrian counts at all? Or
We did
ped and
not.
cycle? You didn't? I think it's great you're doing this. This is a vast improvement from the highway. Thank you for taking this on. I'd love to see the spur implemented, utilizing the Campbell Creek Trail as a potential alternate route that takes you past more accommodations, grocery stores, things of that nature. So great job, Bill.
Other questions or comments? As a cyclist, I agree that this isn't the route, the current isn't the route that I would ever recommend anybody take through town. The new one is definitely the route that if you want to see kind of some of the different sites. And I also have other ideas ways that I would go if I was trying to do it as efficiently as possible versus just scenic value, but get into that some kind of at a later time if that's helpful. Other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, are there any comments from the public? Give a sec. If anybody online, raise your hand. We'll let you make a comment. There are no hands up. I don't see any hands up online. So we'll return the matter to the committee. What is the will of the committee?
We recommend to the policy committee approval of the letter of support for the proposed realignment of U.S. Bicycle Route 97 through the AMATS area and consider more direct spur options in the future.
Okay, motion by member Keegan. Do you want to include in that motion the Eagle River adjustment?
Absolutely, I do.
With the inclusion of the modification or correction for Eagle River. We have a second. Seconded by member Alimi. Or was it member Linden or Whitetail? Either one. We'll say member Alimi. Are there any discussion or amendments? Are there any opposed to the motion? Okay, hearing none, that motion is approved. Move next to item 5C, the AMATS subcommittee autonomy. Is that yours, Aaron?
Yes, it is. Okay, everybody, thank you very much. So this item is before you. Back in April, the policy committee directed staff to work on some kind of guidance or policy for the subcommittee. So for BPAC, FAC, and CAC. Because there was a desire by the policy committee to allow those subcommittees some more autonomy when they want to send out comments or any kind of communication. Because as it stands right now, everything has to come to the TAC and policy committee approval before it goes out. And that has created some significant hurdles for us as staff and as the subcommittees, because it takes a long time to get through the process. And that often means that public comment periods are missed because of it. And we often have to ask project teams to delay their process to accommodate our comments, or we just don't get them in on time. So with that, staff sat down and kind of started talking through it. I think we had 1 or 2 meetings about it and kind of talked about what is it that we're trying to accomplish here. And it's really to give the subcommittees the ability to submit comments or to communicate on topics that are related to their purview. So transportation in this case. We recognize that there are some areas that we need to kind of shore up and some pitfalls to avoid. So we came up with a flow chart. Can you go to the flow chart, please? And this flow chart that we developed is intended to help as a quick reference guide for the subcommittees on how their communications go out. So the first thing we ask is there an open public comment period on something right now? If yes, then the subcommittees are free to submit whatever communication they want on that particular open public comment period. Because open public comment periods are typically a request for comments. So it's not the subcommittee just, hey, we're doing this on our own for fun. It's really encouraging people to comment, and it's an open public process. So they can send that out. After it's signed, staff sends it out. And then the executive director of AMATS sends an email to the policy committee and TAC with communication as information that this communication was sent. That gives the PC and the TAC the opportunity to ask for that item to be on a future agenda in case they want to also support it, send out their own comments, or rescind the comments that were sent from the subcommittees. We felt that having it as a public open comment period was kind of the most flexible thing for them, but we recognize that there's not always going to be an open public comment period. So we have a separate side for that. And we found that we needed some kind of threshold on when they could communicate directly with individuals or when they couldn't. And we settled on as staff as elected officials. So the governor, the mayor, the president of the United States, some examples of communication that we're talking about here, or federal individuals. We don't mean elected federal individuals. We mean anybody on the federal level, because that raises it to a kind of another level. If those people are being communicated with, the communication must go through the TAC and PC for approval. The subcommittees can't send it out on their own. But what if there isn't anybody in that threshold on the communication on the two? Well, we realize that some people might like to include them on the CC list. You know, send it to the commissioner of DOT, but then include the mayor and the governor on the CC list. We realize that's a kind of sneaky way to get around it. So we put that in here as well, that if there is elected officials or anybody federal on the CC list, that has to go to the TAC and policy committee for approval. If the answer to all of the above is no, that there are no elected officials or federal individuals, then the subcommittee is free to send it out on their own without getting TAC and PC approval. And again, we'll follow the same thing. The staff submits the communication after signed by the chair, and then the director sends an email to the PC and TAC for their information. The idea here is to really keep the TAC and PC involved in whatever gets sent out to the subcommittees, because you guys are the groups that, you know, are responsible for AMATS. Can you go to the policy and procedure, please? So attached to this flow chart, or as part of this flow chart, we wanted to come up with a policy and procedure, because I love policies and procedures and it makes sense. So it's a really simple one, and it's really just some guidelines for the subcommittees, because we want them to understand that, yes, you are free to communicate, but there are certain things that you need to be aware of. One, all communication will be submitted by staff. And the reason for that is to ensure it follows all processes, ensure that the right people are CC'd on there, ensure that it's sent, and we have a record of it being sent. Pretty typical, that's what we do with everything. So this is not above and beyond the normal. We do it for the TAC and PC. Communications from the subcommittees will not commit AMATs to funding decisions, policy decisions, and will not include defamatory language. And that last little bit is necessary because we have had some letters in the past that have been a little spicy, that we've had to work with the subcommittees to kind of tone it down. So we wanted to make sure that we had something in there that could allow us to do that as a group overall. And lastly, we recognize that there may be some gray areas since this is new for us. If any questions arise, or if we're unsure about the communication as staff, then staff will defer to bringing the communication to the technical advisory committee and policy committee for review and decision. And it could be at that point that there's an update to this policy and procedure to allow more flexibility or take away the flexibility that's there. The idea here is that it's kind of an iterative thing, and we'll constantly be monitoring this. So the policy and procedure has that information as well as the flow chart. I do recognize there's some text errors on the flow chart, which I thought I caught, but as usual, I did not. So we will update that regardless of what your decision is today. So this item is before you for you to review and provide a recommendation for approval to the policy committee. We know it's the first time a lot of you have seen this, so if there is more desire for discussion, that's fine. We can have a work session if you want, or other things. Really, the idea here is just to try and give it to where there's a lot more flexibility and frees up everybody's time a little bit to ensure that stuff gets sent out in a timely manner, and to help make the AMATS process a little less cumbersome for everybody. So this is before you, and I'm happy to help answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
I just want to say thanks to staff for working on this. I know when we've had letters coming from the subcommittees, that's been challenging items to how do you deal with that given what the content of the letter is? And so I think this frames it well, gives autonomy to the subcommittees so we can meet those public comment periods. I think a good change. So thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the community?
I agree that this is a good move and having this policy place will help clarify a few things, but I am curious if staff will be able to maybe add some information, and you may have just said this, I apologize, to these communications explaining who they're coming from and what their role is in the AMATS organization.
Yes, hold on. As you were talking, I realized I forgot something shocking. One of the things that we did get comments on is the idea that kind of what you spoke at is maybe not everybody understands AMATS and how it's made up. And they may see a letter from the BPAC and think that's the policy committee's voice saying this is what needs to be done. So one of the things we're looking at, but haven't gotten to yet, mostly because we haven't had time, unfortunately, is to get some kind of generic cover letter to attach to any of the communications that is sent out from the subcommittees that explains who the subcommittee is or what the subcommittees are, that they're advisory to AMATS, and that the letter that or the communication being sent does not constitute action by the policy committee. It's just recommendations, however we want to phrase it. And I think we need to come back and get you guys to review that and make sure you're okay with it. It's just information, recommendations, communications from the subcommittee in kind of advisory capacity. And that all official directions will come from the policy committee itself. So we didn't have a chance to put that together, but it is something that is on my radar, and we hope to put it together and bring it to you guys and have you review it.
Your comments, go ahead.
Just to follow up to that, Aaron, is there a way instead of maybe having two letters, it could confuse people? Can we put like the standard boilerplate language in like a footer or something that just says, hey, caution, this is coming from an advisory committee, but it's not, you know, it's something that's in the letter, but it's always just kind of a standard format template. I don't know, just something to think about, because that way, I mean, if I got two letters from two different organizations kind of at the same time, I'd be like, what? It would confuse me. I got a simple.
Yeah, we can do like a disclaimer. We have that on like the tip and stuff for other things. So we'll just need to refine it and make sure that it's not too lengthy because we don't want it to be a half a page disclaimer on everything. So we can go ahead and play with some ideas and see what kind of works best. I think staff will kind of toss that around and then we can maybe bring it back or just get your guys' feedback on it and maybe at a future meeting as an informational item or something, whatever. And we can propose or an action item, we can propose that and incorporate it as part of this. I would recommend that we note that somewhere on the flow chart or the policy itself, we might want to just put under the guidelines that say a disclaimer will be attached to all communications outlining the subcommittee's roles in the organization. So it's not missed, because I know that we're having this discussion now, but maybe a few years from now we forget. And then it doesn't get added to a letter and then it becomes a problem. So if you're comfortable with it and you guys want to approve this today, if you could include that as part of your approval, that staff come up with a disclaimer or cover letter to add and incorporate that into the flow chart policy and procedure.
So you're suggesting that maybe we add item D, so under B, at D, kind of confusing, they're both letters, by the way. So the second item, add in
BD, yes.
that
We'll
says
change that.
that a disclaimer for company letters. Clarifying. That was kind of a question, but if that.
Yes, sorry, I just want to make sure I get that down. Yes, so we will, yes, I think that's what we're recommending for that. And we will update those to, instead of being A, B, and C for the sub bullets, we'll do 1, 2, or 3, and we'll add it as number 4. So it'll be number 4, all communications require a disclaimer explaining the subcommittee's roles in the organization.
Other questions or comments? Go ahead.
A question for staff. So, right now, all this communication comes through the TAC and Policy Committee. With additional autonomy there, does that information get shared as informational items? Or I guess a lot of that has to do with the things that the TAC and the Policy Committee are dealing with.
It's this bottom box.
Yeah, on the flow chart, we note that any communication that is sent out will also be provided to the TAC and PC. What we can actually probably do is update the guidelines under the PNP. Note that all communication will be provided to the TAC and Policy Committee as informational.
Okay.
So I can add that in as number 5. If you guys want to include that in your motion, if you do a motion, that would help.
And email looks good. Yeah, thanks for catching that. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, are there other questions or comments from the committee? I've got a few. In the flow chart, the box about is the communication to elected officials. And then also, does the CC list contain elected officials in federal? I'm wondering if those two can just be combined into a single. Is the communication to them or copied them? If that simplifies things, if there's, it looks like the answer's the same, kind of, just one more simplification of the flow chart. You know, it's not simplifying it, but I'm fine with how it is. Just wanted to raise that as a question.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at that if need be. I don't know if it matters too much. I like having it separated because then there's no
It's not gonna
question. And we don't want somebody to be like, you didn't specifically say in a separate bullet that it wasn't allowed to be on the CC. So I'm trying to think of what it looks like a few years from now when maybe different people are looking at this. And then they're like, okay, it matters for both. But we can, maybe between now and the policy committee, we can look at, is there a way to simplify it, make it easy? And maybe we can just enlarge the box and have it be, is it direct communication? And then below it, is it CC on there? And then, I don't know, we can look at it.
I can see your point. And the second item is on the left, or the top one. Is there a public comment period open? And the answer is yes. And then the box that says AMAT staff submits subcommittee communication. I'm assuming that means that you're submitting it as a comment in the public comment period versus it gives a blanket ability to submit any letter to anyone. It's a public comment committee or public comment period open.
Yeah, we can refine that. Like, yes, the intent is, it is a response to the open public comment period, not just a generic, hey, there's a public comment period open here. We're going to send a separate letter about something totally different that's not related to the public comment period. So we can,
You know, just looking for loopholes and that's.
that was so challenging for us because we were trying to think of any little loophole or like wiggle room. And I think we're gonna miss something. So we can take a look at how to refine the language in there. That
Maybe just update that comment will be submitted
Okay,
to, through the open the comment period.
okay.
Okay, other questions or comments from the committee? Are there any, we'll move to the public then. Are there any comments from the public? Give those online a sec to raise your hands. Nobody in the room. Okay, I don't see any hands coming up online either. We'll bring the back then to the committee. What is the will of the committee?
I move to recommend to the policy committee that they that they approve the proposed policy and procedure number 7 with the edits to the policy itself and the flow chart as discussed. Meeting.
Okay, motion made by member Bab, seconded by member Keegan. Is that specific enough, or do you have
Yeah,
questions?
no, that's fine, but there are a couple things I forgot to mention as usual. We did talk to the BPAC and CAC about this. They did provide us comments. Overall, I think they're supportive of it because, you know, it sees it. But I want to note that if this is approved by the policy committee, we're going to have to come back with edits to the bylaws at a later date because their bylaws right now are very specific and basically says everything has to be approved by the policy committee. We didn't bring that as part of this because we wanted to let this play out and see if there are any changes or edits before we made a wholesale edit to all of the bylaws. So just as a heads up, if this is approved, you'll probably be seeing those at a later date. And yes, that's enough information for us as staff.
Is it simple enough to fold into the amendment that the bylaw should be updated consistent with this policy?
I'm fine with leaving that for a separate day, just because we'll probably have some additional edits to the bylaws. The CAC met and had some changes to their bylaws. We'll have to see if the BPAC wants to make some other changes to the bylaws, because there are some things in the CAC, the bylaws right now about new members. You know, we have a lot of people who've been on the committee for well over their 3 terms, and they need to be changed over. And so we are looking at updating the bylaws to add other things outside of this particular topic. So I'd like to keep it separate if possible.
Other discussion or amendments to the motion?
I just want to add, I appreciate Luke's comment in particular about updating the flow chart. So that any letters are added as informational items to our agenda, because I get a lot of emails and I might miss some communication. So as info item, it just ensures that we are seeing what's happening, but there's no action that could create confusion. So thanks for that, Luke.
Okay. So just from my awareness, we have A, B, and C under B are going to be changed to 1, 2, and 3. It's going to have a 4 and a 5 added.
Yes.
The disclaimer on the cover page, and also bringing it to the top, you can see as an informational item. In addition to the email. And then updating the flow chart so that it specifies that this submitted letter is going to the public comment period and not just blanket. You can do anything.
Yep. And we'll also be making the edits to the misspellings throughout the flow chart. I don't know if any of you use the Visio for flow chart, but it is not the best in the world. So
Spell checker.
yeah. And apparently I can't spell.
Okay. Are there any opposed to the motion? Okay, hearing none, that motion is approved. Thank you for your work on that. Next item on our agenda, the new item 5D that was added, the EMATS funding program tip admin mod 9.
This will be me, everybody. We're just waiting for the screen to load. Okay, so after the agenda was posted, staff received a request from the DOT for an admin mod number 9. And I'm not trying to be mean about that. I'm just letting you know what the timeline is. A couple of items fell through the cracks while we were working on the admin mod 7 and 8. So we wanted to bring this to you all to get these done so we can get the funds obligated this fiscal year. So there are some changes to the HSIP, the Highway Safety Improvement Program table number 7, that I'll go through right now. And I'm looking at Mark to make sure that he has it so he can correct me if I made an error.
Over here.
Okay, so first is for the, I just want to let you know, the projects on the memo are listed in the order they appear in the tip, not in necessarily the project number order. So if anybody's confused with that. the Anchorage flashing yellow arrow and signal head display improvement stage 1. So the idea here is to add construction to the phase plan for federal fiscal year 26. Remove the funding shown in beyond 26. So when I looked at it, the beyond 26 is a duplication with the parent project that's right above it. So basically what I did for this is I just copied and pasted and forgot to remove the beyond 26 funding. So it's still showing the primary project as having the construction dollars. Don't worry about it. This is just a duplication. It's also beyond the fiscal years of the TIP. So it is not an impact to our fiscal constraint. So it doesn't meet the threshold of lot amendment or anything like that. So it's something that we can change as part of this. Next item is the Tudor Road, Baxter Road to Patterson Street channelization. Add design to the phasing plan for FY26 and add 2.029 million in FY26 for that design effort. So it increases the project cost. Next is the Anchorage signalized intersection cameras. Add construction to the phase plan for 26. We moved the funding from the UNCAT, which is UNCATEGOR 148 with state match, to ACVRU with state match, and then added 842,000 for the conversion. So basically what this is that funding was AC'd in FY25, so we're showing that. And then the conversion is expected to happen in 26. So when we talk about conversion, when you AC something, you typically use non-federal funds to AC it, to use and start the projects, and then you come in later and do the conversion, which basically means you get the federal money to pay you back for all the money you obligated previously. So we don't do this very often because it's super complicated, but it seems like it's something that we're starting to do more often. So just bear with us as we do this. We may have to make some edits as we go for future tips. And just note, this doesn't increase the project cost at all. It's more of an accounting thing. And then the last one is Mountain View Drive safety improvements. Add design to FY26, 250,000 with HSIP penalty fund code, and there's no match required for HSIP penalty. So that's why you don't see the match on there. So these items are before you. They all meet the admin mod requirement for the TIP. This will be our last admin mod of this fiscal year. I can say that with confidence because the federal program closes soon. So anything else we will have to catch in a future tip. So I'm going to thank DOT. I apologize for the errors and kind of missing some things, but I think we're getting to a better point with getting these information to each other and getting it through the program. I do want to thank everybody for bearing with us as we kind of get the administrative modification chain rolling. We typically have not done admin mods in the past, and so it's a new one for us, but you see we have one almost every month. So look forward to 11 or more every year. So yeah, that's the staff's recommendation is to recommend to the policy committee approval of admin mod number 9. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the committee?
I'd just like to say thanks to staff for working with us on this. We're working through the last obligations here in 26. And so absolutely critical to make some of these changes here as we're obligating funds here towards the end of the year. And some good updates there. I think that Mountain View safety improvements, the funding request is in process through DOT. So that's advancing. We signed the certification for Tudor Road Baxter and channelization this morning. So that funding request will be going out here in the next couple of weeks. Said the signalization is kind of more of money on the credit card and paying off the credit card. So again, thank you.
Salute. Another question or comments from the committee? Okay, we'll go to the public. Are there comments from the public? Looks like we do not have any comments from the public, either online or in the room. What is the will of the committee?
Move to recommend approval of the 23 to 26 funding program TIP modification number 9 to the policy committee.
Okay, motion by member Boland. Do we have a second? Second by member Babb. Are there other discussion or amendments to the motion? Okay, hearing none, are there any opposed to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. That gets us through all of our action items for today. On our agenda, we looks like we don't have any information items.
Nope.
for this meeting. Okay. So that will push us then over into committee comments, other comments by members of the committee.
I have one if no one else has anything, real quick. I want to make an announcement. We actually just hired a new individual for our senior accountant position at AMATS. We just put out and got a wonderful applicant. So we are excited to announce that Mook will be coming back to AMATS starting on the 17th of August. So she will be filling the role of our senior accountant, and we're very excited to have her with us. So I think she may be attending meetings as well, so you might see her at the meetings just so she's aware of what we're doing. I want her to know more about what she is working on with us and everything. So we're all pretty excited. So thank you.
Yeah. Very nice. Thanks, Ben. Are there members of the committee who have comments?
I'll just say, for the short time that Mook and I worked together in her Department of Public Works Administration, who does a lot of support for project management and engineering, she's just a delightful person, and I know she does good work. So great to hear that she's going to be supporting. It's AMATS, right?
Yep.
Yes, AMATS.
She'll be a dedicated AMATS only person, basically.
Congrats to you.
Thank you.
So it's on the record, we are thrilled to have her back in the planning department, even if it's just in that. It'll be nice.
So she previously was supporting AMATS and planning.
No, I mean, AMATS is the in the planning department, technically. So she'll be back in my department as one of my staff, but she will be dedicated to AMATS.
Okay. Sounds good. Other member comments? Okay, we'll move then into the public comment period. If there's any members of the public who would like to general comment, you are welcome to. Please, if you're online, raise your hands. In the room, you can also raise your hand. And so far, it's looking like no hands are up either online or in the room, which is okay. So seeing no additional public comments, and that moves us to item 9, which is adjournment. So I will call this meeting adjourned. 2:08 p.m.
Record.
Yeah, it is.